Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Working in Hockey podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bowins, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Emmy Award winning host, Arda Öcal. You know him from NHL on ESPN. You might know him from the University of Waterloo, where I also went. Arda, how you doing tonight?
Always good to talk to someone from my alma mater. It doesn't happen too often, certainly not in hockey, but
Yes.
it's great to chat with you, Nick. You got a great thing going on, keeping people in the loop on what's available in hockey. There's a lot of passionate people, of course, that want to work in the industry. So that's really cool that you're taking on this initiative and bringing it to the people. That's cool.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And I want to kick it off with a bit of a unique question here, Arda, because I think I can safely say you're the first and probably only guest I'm going to have on here that has done a TED Talk. I've watched that a number of different times. It was very well done. First of all, you crushed it. I think it was very relatable for people with the hockey aspects, from the Mario Brothers to Star Wars, everything in between. Talk to the people about your experience with a TED Talk, preparing for that, and getting up on stage and doing that.
Also happened at the University of Waterloo, which was a pretty
Yes.
cool full circle moment there. I had hosted the TED Talk Day a few years ago
Mm.
for UW, and it happened in their big auditorium that year. So this one did not. I think the auditorium was under construction, so they had to hold it at a different location. The reason I wanted to do it, well, first of all, I love TED Talks. Like I love people that give good insight and interest. I've learned a lot of interesting things from TED Talks, so I enjoy them and I appreciate them. But also, it was very challenging from so in the job that I do now, and many people in broadcasting, you don't really memorize scripts, certainly not speeches that are 20 minutes long. You're either writing a script and reading off a teleprompter or you're ad libbing. So, very rarely are you writing anything more than a short paragraph and memorizing it to say it on camera, certainly on a hockey show, right? Like, what intermissions reports can you think of where people are writing something and reading it from memory? Like that just doesn't happen, certainly not in the course of my job. So, I felt like it would be a good challenge, and it definitely was, like to write it and to write something where I would just hope that people would resonate with it or care, quite
Mhm.
honestly. And not only that, but prepare for it. So I took the entire summer and uh, I read it. So what I did was I wrote it, I showed it to some people I trusted, I fine tuned it, and when I was happy with what I had, I actually read it and put the video on YouTube in a private link so that when I was
Mm.
commuting to work, because I have a long commute to work, I would just listen to it over and over in the car. And that helped me sort of memorize it because then I'd listen to it, try to recite it, listen to it. So that was my way of sort of memorizing it. So by the time I got to Waterloo, this happened in early October of 2023, I was pretty ready. And it wasn't really the crowd or that kind of thing that worried me. It was really more the, will I remember my speech?
Yeah.
So it was challenging from that point of view. I'm happy I did it. Maybe I'll think of doing another one down the line if I can think of an interesting topic, but I'm happy I did this one for sure.
Absolutely. No, it was an awesome video, came across super well. And yeah, I didn't even think of that component. Like I say, obviously you're well spoken, you're on camera all the time speaking, but the memorization part, 20 minutes, not a chance I could do that. So kudos to you for that.
And I didn't
Um,
think so either, man. I didn't think so either, Nick. I really did. not, not then I was like, I don't know. There's no
yeah.
prompter. What do you mean? Yeah, right.
We touched on a little bit there your role with ESPN, NHL on ESPN, SportsCenter, everything that you're doing there. Tell me a little bit about transitioning into that role, what your day to day kind of looks like in a role like that. You said a long commute. You said not as much memorization, right? Covering live sports. SportsCenter is, every kid my age grew up watching SportsCenter every morning. Talk about being on that show.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a dream come true working on hockey, the NHL on ESPN, and it's definitely a bucket list item to have hosted SportsCenter and to continue to be in the mix. Like it's just like SportsCenter is an institution, right? Like in America, it's been around for 40 plus years. The brand awareness must be extremely high. If not everyone in America knows at least what SportsCenter is, even if they don't watch it. The SportsCenter is a television institution at this point, and so for me to have been trusted to host well over, I can't even estimate it, somewhere in the hundreds episodes of that show means a lot to me. And the way to prepare, like each time of day for SportsCenter is different. I've in majority hosted the night sports centers, and those are
Mhm.
very ad lib. Those are very highlight what has happened in the evening of sports. The night sports centers are usually catered to. They often they act as a post game show. Like Scott Van Pelt will often, for example, his edition of Sports Center will often lead Monday Night Football or follow Monday Night Football or a Stanley Cup final game or an NBA game, like things like that.
Yeah.
The night sports centers are very much immediate recap and analysis, and the sports center editions throughout the day. The morning edition is okay. You're waking up. Tell me the story behind the game, as opposed to just here's highlight. Tell more of a story in those moments and really dive into the meaning of things and what people need to understand more than just watching a highlight on their phone, for example. And then as you get forward throughout the day, the 6 o'clock especially gearing you up for the night's action in sports, that kind of thing. So there's a cadence to the
Sure.
different sports centers that happen throughout the different times of day. Yeah,
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
to prepare for one, it's really so you go. I usually get in there maybe a few hours before, let's say 4 hours or so before, and for the night edition you get assigned games. So okay, you're doing Yankees Red Sox, you're doing Bruins and Oilers, you're doing whatever, and then your initials will be beside games and on camera lead-ins to whatever, a feature or a segment of some sort or whatnot, maybe a voiceover of a news item. So that's when you start to research and understand the games that, like, the thing is you can't watch every single second of every game. You just can't. It's impossible, right? So you have to do as much. You have to. What I would do is I would have the most important games that I'm going to be covering up and watching them while researching for the other things that I need to be preparing for and writing for. So that's sort of a cadence to how I would be preparing for a sports center.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think, like I said, you've been in the industry for quite a while now. You've had a handful of different jobs, both in hockey, other sports. I know you had some wrestling experience there as well. What was your first kind of introduction to working in hockey? Was it calling some of those OHL games that I saw online, or what was your first kind of role in the game of hockey?
Yeah, it was the Brampton Battalion in the
Cool.
OHL. This was in the mid 2000s. I graduated from the University of Waterloo. I got a degree in math and business, complete opposite of broadcasting, and I got a desk job. And I was happy doing it, but nights and weekends, instead of going out and partying with my friends, I'd go to the local public access channel trying to just learn because it was interesting to me and it was a lot of fun to me. So eventually they held open auditions. They liked what they saw. They put me on a bunch of different shows. And that's when I raised my hand and said, hey, I really love hockey. Could I do some stuff with the two OHL teams that were, this was Rogers TV Peel region. So
Mhm.
that serviced Mississauga, Brampton. Both those cities had OHL teams at the time. So I basically was a fill-in slash catch-all for both of those broad teams when they had home games, especially. So one day I might be doing reporting, another day filling in on play-by-play, another day filling in on color, another day between the benches, another day writing a story of the game. Like it was very, you do what was necessary and what was available. And looking back on it, that was very, very important to my development and certainly to getting a reel as well, because I was doing so many different things. It really was in service of my demo reel, which then was, you know, allowed me to propel myself to another level, thankfully.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. I think that's a common trend with people that I have on the show here, and who wind up finding success is they did roles that were kind of catch-alls where they had to wear different hats and juggle different duties. And I think that invaluable experience comes from that, being adaptable, being able to understand multiple components of the broadcast, whether it's color or writing notes, writing scripts, whatever it may be. But I also know that you happen to work for the Weather Network. I think sometimes people land a job, like you said, you had a desk job there initially. I think a lot of times, especially around sports, people land a job and they go, "Oh shoot, this isn't what I want to do," and they just shut it off. They don't take pride in it. They don't try to learn from it. They just kind of go through the motions. Talk to me about the importance of being able to take something from every experience, whether it was wrestling to Weather Network to everything. It's all led you to where you are today, right?
Yeah, and in broadcasting, to your point, everything has transferable skill. So you
Yeah.
will notice you're flexing a lot of the same muscles in different roles, but there's different components to those roles. And the Weather Network was a great fortune to me at that point in my career. There was that was like before I got that job, it was a little bit of a dark period, thinking I may never get a job in this industry again. You know, like the industry is very fickle, the industry is difficult, it's challenging, and the supply far exceeds the demand in terms of jobs available and how many candidates there are. So I was very lucky to get that job. I worked 3 months, one winter in Ottawa, and then I got a full time job in Vancouver. So I just uprooted. I didn't have a family then. I was, a single guy and just looking to get better and find other opportunities in broadcasting, and that was available. And as a weather reporter, I didn't have to have a meteorology degree, so I was qualified and I jumped at the chance, and it was a blast. I enjoyed it. If not for getting the job at WWE in Connecticut and moving, I might still be in Vancouver because that job was terrific, and I had a blast. It was creative. I got to think of different things to do every morning. It was a lot of fun. I got to spread my wings. I got to take swings, and all under this in the sandbox of reporting the weather in the morning. So it was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed it. And what I take from that experience is that never say no attitude, and especially in this industry, like you just have to, especially when you're either if you're in a situation of desperation, which I was, but also if you're just looking to build a reel and you're early in your career, the word no is should not be in your vocabulary as it pertains to opportunities. Just say yes to everything. Make sure that you're just hitting the ground running, learning everything you can, because even if it's not a subject matter that you're really truly passionate about, you're covering an event, it's transferable skills. You're learning how to prepare for events and how to be successful in that role and how to properly execute the job so that when it is subject matter that you care about, you're even more prepared, but you also have a demo reel to show to the people who are hiring for those jobs. So it's very, very important.
I couldn't agree more. I think, like you said, especially when starting out your career, it's all about getting those at bats, and it doesn't matter if it's the big leagues or you're playing t-ball. Like it's all about getting at bats and
Exactly.
experience, 100% there. And I love talking to people with as much experience as you because all these random thoughts and questions pop into my head as we go, and it completely takes
Please.
me off my flow. But we're both from Ontario, both living in New York now. I lived in Whistler for a little while. You mentioned Vancouver there. You mentioned Ottawa. How much did living in different cities, different places kind of add to your, people skills, comfortability, all those things? As I kind of look back on the last couple of years, I've moved around a lot. And, I think it's been really helpful for me as a person to be able to, move to a new place and have to make friends there and have to meet people there and get accustomed to a new kind of culture and climate and all those things. Is there any kind of benefit that you can attribute to living all these different places with your career?
That was the best part of working in Vancouver, by the way. I had to go to Whistler every 2 weeks to do a ski report. Oh, boo hoo, that was terrible.
Darn.
Worst part of the job. Oh man, cry me a river, right? Uh yeah, like I mean, the two things are the most successful people will go to where they find the opportunities and work on it and hone their craft. There's still something to be said about people that are going to smaller markets and being that one stop shop, that one person band. doing everything, setting up the cameras, finding the stories, finding the interview subjects, framing the camera, white balancing the camera, doing the interview off, like the hand with the stick mic, etc. Then doing their stand-ups and editing it and filing it, etc. There's something to be said about that is a challenging gig, especially in lower markets that may not pay as well, but the experience that you gain there, and also the passion and determination and ambition that you're showing by going to those places and continuing to show that, those are the people that typically succeed in the industry, the ones that are able to do that but are also willing to grind it out, willing to put that work in, because that's one of the best ways you can stand out over everybody else. And to your point about going wherever, the vibe in Vancouver, as you know, in BC is a lot different than the vibe in Ontario, and certainly the vibe in New York as well. So you're in different places, you're absorbing, you're meeting people, there's different ways of life and different ways to approach life. And this is all absorption, all part of the learning experience, whether it's work or life. So I found it to be very valuable, and certainly happened at the time in my life where I could afford to do those kind of things. And so I look back on it very fondly for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it's like you said, compounding life experience with all those different adventures there. Word that you mentioned a couple times in that response is passion. And I think that's something super important with working in hockey. What I'm trying to do is help people realize that when you're passionate about something, chase it. And Arda, I think that's something that you do really well, from hockey to video games to Star Wars, all the things you touched on in your TED Talk, all the things in your podcast background right now. You've been able to make livings out of your passions and your interests, right? Talk to me a little bit about, sticking to your passions and wanting to push through and find ways to, turn those into careers and livings.
There are plenty of examples out there of people, like, let's say people watching this right now want to be on the air or create content. There are plenty of examples of people that are making very livable slash comfortable slash impressive wages, simply talking about the things that they're passionate about. And the reason why they're succeeding, the formula, you can extrapolate the formula of how to succeed to any content creator. Be consistent, post often, post what people are talking about, post interesting things, be funny, be engaging, be informative, be in the zeitgeist, whatever. Like, there's a lot of different advice that you can find beyond more than beyond what I just said. And this is all coming from successful content creators, successful YouTubers. But the number one thing that binds them all together is that they love the subject matter and the content that they are talking about. So it's not a chore to them to find things to talk about. And because they're already in those bubbles and they want to be thought leaders, or they're in the bubble, whether they're making money on it or not, they're consuming this so voraciously that they're going to find no shortage of things to talk about, right? It's going to be easy for them to generate content, to generate ideas. And then through that, they find a consistent schedule. Through that, they find different angles and whatever video orientations and lengths and all of these things that people tell you that these are the tricks to succeed. The number one thing is always passion, because that breeds knowledge and that breeds interest, and that's going to take you very, very far. And for both of us, and I'm sure many people watching this that are passionate about hockey, the best content creators, the best people that talk about hockey are the ones that care about hockey the most. And then they learn how to edit, and then they learn how to present, and then they learn how to consistently create content such that they can make themselves a success. And it's funny, one of the best quotes that I've heard is, it takes 15 years to be an overnight success. Now, the 15 years is a number that could be higher or lower for everyone, because everyone's path is different. But the gist of the quote, everyone can relate to. Like, someone all of a sudden you see their account and they're at 100,000 followers or a million followers, and you're like, where did this person come from? Well, they were probably grinding for a very long time, and it took them a heck of a long time to get to that first thousand, let alone that first 10,000 or 100,000. So I admire the people that are on that grind very, very much, especially when they're in a specialized niche.
Absolutely. No, that was an excellent answer. I think passion's the core of everything. And when you're chasing a career, you're just graduated, whatever it is, seek out the things that you're passionate about because that's where you're going to find the most fulfillment, and that's always going to lead to opportunity in turn. I want to talk a little bit more specific about hockey, Arda. Again, NHL on ESPN. You guys are great coverage, great broadcasts, and I moved down to the U.S. about 6 months ago. Here, I've been pleasantly surprised with all the hockey coverage down here. I thought I might go through some withdrawals coming from Ontario, but it seems to be popping up more and more places down here. The coverage is expanding, the game is growing, more kids carrying bags around the streets, more non-traditional markets opening up in the US, right? Talk to me about the state of hockey overall right now, how you see the game growing and progressing, and what that could lead to.
I think hockey's in a great place in the United States in particular. It's always going to be, you know, king, queen in Canada. In the States, it's going to be very tough for any sport to surpass football because football is, religion in the United States. But for hockey, it's one of those sports that people discover it and they fall in love with it. It's one of those sports. I think that it's in a very good place right now. One of the quite honestly, it one of the key factors to me just comes down to a numbers game. There's two national networks that have a keen interest in the success of hockey right now, or in the NHL, certainly, right? So when you have the backing of two powerhouse entities that are putting their content, their marketing, their thoughts, money, etc., into making the sport grow, it's going to grow, right? Like so from that angle alone, hockey is in a very, very good spot. And I can tell you from the ESPN side, it's a fantastic team on and off camera. The producers are extremely talented. The directors are absolutely wonderful. The whole crew is a joy to work with. And on camera, we have some of the smartest hockey minds in the entire business. I could sit and watch hockey with Mark Messier all day. I could, joke around with PK Subban all day long. He's absolutely hilarious, and we have a fantastic roster of people that I'm lucky that I'm in a position where I do a lot of different games and I work with a lot of our analysts. So I get to work with pretty much all of our analysts on the roster at least once throughout the year. Either they'll come into studio even once, or even like someone like Ray Ferraro, who's predominantly on the road, right, doing ABC games, etc. I had a chance to work with him a couple times doing episodes of The Point, etc. this year, which was an absolute thrill because he's maybe the
He's
smartest
awesome.
hockey mind out there. Honestly, like
Yeah.
the way that he describes hockey and parses thoughts and just gives them to you in a bite-sized format. Like there's nobody better doing that, and he's one of the best analysts. Period, not just
Yes.
hockey. So like I love listening to people like that talk, but also in those moments, I get an opportunity to kind of pick his brain a little bit. Hey, like what made you decide to say it this way? What are we conveying here? Like there's certain angles that I can ask, and especially with the veterans on our squad, like it's terrific. So yeah, I'm really lucky, man. Like I'm extremely happy. Hockey was always my number one sport growing up. I loved it, and to be working in it now is honestly a dream come true. And I'm absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that that's one of the coolest things over the past couple of years, having guys like Messier on with you guys, or Gretzky on the TNT broadcast. I feel like a lot of times we kind of catch you guys looking in awe at some of the stories and breakdowns that they're sharing. And I think that's one of the coolest things when you get to hear the game from their perspective. Like it's not something that we had several years ago, and I think that's really helping grow the game as well. Speaking of growing the game, I know you've done some stuff lately with the guys over at just dishing. They're doing some great stuff for the game and really help kind of grow the content and marketing element. Where do you see the game growing in that direction with people like the guys at Just Dishing, helping push that ship along right now?
So I have like in terms of where I think the game will grow significantly, I think we're going to see an uptick in hockey content creators. I think they're very, very important to the hockey ecosystem. I'm talking about people like Always Hockey, like the on the bench guys, Nasher, Coach Chippy, Swaggy P, people like that. You can think of Sweet Annie, like there's like a bunch of content creators that are really clicking and just pumping out great content. I think that we're going to see an increase in hockey content creators, and that's going to be crucial to the hockey space in general. I look no further than I did a charity event in Stamford uh, a couple weeks ago, Shoulder Check, a terrific event,
Yep.
fantastic cause, and it was a mix of hockey players and content creators, and many of the content creators got much louder reactions than a lot of the NHL players. And that is not a dig at the NHL players. To me, that signifies that the younger generation is resonating, is connecting with the content creators because they are consistently in their timelines and consistently, you know, the touch points are there regularly, and they're just building a brand for themselves. So it was palpable. You could see it, and even like the autograph line, you could see how many kids were waiting for autographs from Swaggy P and Coach Chippy. Like it was awesome. I loved seeing that. So if it were my decision, I would encourage every NHL team to have like a Nasher equivalent. Like I
Yeah,
would say every NHL team, like Nasher might be the best ambassador.
100%.
He's one of the best hockey content creators, period. But the fact that he lives in Columbus and he loves the Blue Jackets and what he officially, unofficially does content wise with or for the Blue Jackets, there should be a Nasher in every hockey market in the United States, period, or in the NHL, quite frankly, like a Steve Dangle for the Leafs
Yep.
and Nasher for the Blue Jackets and Sweet Annie for the Ducks. Like there should be one content creator that is like almost the ambassador slash flag bearer for each team in the NHL. I think that would be a huge, huge thing. But with the gestition guys, like you were mentioning, they have an opportunity. I feel like they're right there, Nick. Like I feel like they're so close to just blowing up, not just hockey, but sports. Like their Jordan 1 skate design went
Yeah.
viral. Was it last season or 2 seasons ago? And they're
So good.
so close to being the authority or essentially being at the forefront of the wave of hockey fashion. They are right there, man. Like they're so close, and they're very talented. They're very passionate team and crew. Matt and Nick and the guys there are awesome. I went to their Justition bubble hockey tournament in Buffalo
Right.
a month or so ago, and it was awesome. And they couldn't be nicer guys. I wish them amazing success, and I think they're on the precipice of it. I really, really do. I'm not saying this because like I'm not I'm not sponsored by them. I'm literally just a fan of their product, and I'm like,
Yes.
these guys are on the cusp.
Amen. Amen to that. And especially with Nasher and guys like that, like you said, the impact, the reach, the value that they bring to a market like Columbus that isn't the biggest NHL market, the drive that they can get from somebody like that, it's awesome. And I totally agree. The content creation world is just starting for hockey when you compare it to football, basketball, any other major sport there. But Arda, I always try to wrap things up here with some advice. Talk to me a little bit about advice that you have picked up along your career, things that people have told you, lessons that you've learned the hard way or the easy way. What would you pass on to the next generation of aspiring Arda Ocals?
Yeah, for people that want to do this job, the advice that I would give them, the barrier to entry to get noticed and create content has never been lower. In my day, there was no YouTube, no podcasts, nothing like that. You had to go to the local television station, public access, whatever, in order to get noticed or in order to get the station manager to notice you so that they would consider putting you on hockey games or something like that. Now, that is still
Yeah.
a viable option. You can go to the ECHL, you can go to college, you can go to the AHL, whatever. Work in social media, create content for the teams, uh, apply to be in their media department slash play-by-play broadcasters. I know plenty of people that do that kind of thing, and that is a great way to build a reel and build a name for yourself in the hockey community. Absolutely. What you can also do is, if you don't have the luxury of moving and you don't want to go to market number 124 and be a sports reporter there, if you have the opportunity and the job is available and you get a job like that and you can go, definitely go. Build a reel, make a name for yourself, grind your way up, work your way up. That will certainly suit you well. Suits many people well, I should say. But also, you can create consistent content from home. If you love hockey, create hockey content. Do not worry about the views. Do not worry about who's consuming. Worry about the consistency. Worry about the content. Worry about if you are liking what you are making. And also, look at the landscape. What is out there right now in terms of hockey content? Maybe you won't be able to go one on one with Swaggy P in terms of trick shots or always hockey. Like but maybe you have an angle that would be additive to the hockey
Yep.
community, something that someone's not thinking about right now. Be creative, take swings, look at what's out there right now and do something different, or at least think differently. The world is your oyster in that regard. Create content and just keep going and keep at it. And if you're passionate about it and you care, you're going to want to do it, whether you have a full-time job to supplement yourself or not. I certainly did it that way. It didn't feel like work because I just wanted to do it and I loved it and it didn't feel like work. So that would be some of the advice that I would give. And also, when you have a demo reel, go on places like LinkedIn or go
Mm.
and find social media of people that you want to talk to. If it's someone like me or people in my job or a reporter or a play by play person, honestly, 80% of the time, these people either will write back or will be willing to talk. I
Yep.
remember this left an impression on me, Nick. I remember so Doc Emmerich's one of the best ever, right? Like Doc
Yep.
is Doc, he's awesome and he's a terrific human being. I remember during an Emmy Awards acceptance speech, he literally gave out his email in the speech. He's like, hey, if there's anybody who's watching this right now that wants advice on how to get in on the industry or how to get into the industry and how to work in hockey or work in broadcasting, here's my email. And then he spelled it out during his Emmy acceptance speech.
What?
Like, first of all, what a legend, right? Like what a legend. What's a legendary move. Amazing dude, acts of kindness, love to see it, right? But also, that goes to show you that from Doc Emmerich on down, or everyone at his level or below or whatever, like there are a lot of people that you can just learn from. So try and create a team of people that you can get advice from and
Yeah.
pick their brains and just learn and soak it all in. Like, find mentors, find champions, find people that are willing to spend some time with you, look at your reel, or just, hey, I have this work related question. What do you think about this angle or whatever? Like, trust me, you will be able to find those people and assume the law of sales. Maybe 90% of people don't respond to you, but it's not on you. It's not your fault. It's not
Yep.
you, Nick, being a horrible human being and no one wants to talk to Nick. That's not the case. The truth is, maybe they didn't see the message. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they have enough people that they're talking to. Like there's plenty of other reasons why people may not respond or just not have the time. So I would say just keep trying and also reach out to people who you admire or whose jobs you would love to occupy one day and pick their brains.
Yeah, that's a fabulous answer. And I think, like you said, especially in hockey and in sports in general, there's so many good people that if you step up to the plate and send those messages more often than not, it's going to go to somebody who's a good, kind person, and they're going to be able to help you out. I think that's well said.
Except
And
for
I'm
me.
gonna,
I
yeah.
don't respond to anybody. Zero. Okay. So if you write to me, I'm going to be like, ha ha, no.
And your
I would not
email
do
was,
it. Yeah. Don't even try it at gmail.com.
I'm
At
gonna choose to
gmail dot
believe that
no.
docs was just doc at Gmail or something like that. Just doc at. I choose to
It's
believe
something
that's what
like that.
his
Yeah,
was.
it's on YouTube. My DMs are open. People message me on LinkedIn all the time, and I happily respond, certainly when I
No,
have the time. So yeah, and that's the other thing. Like a lot of people like myself or whatever have open DMs. So you just message them
yeah.
and be like, hey, I have a work question for, or here's my reel. You want to check it out? Like, sure, why not?
Absolutely. It is always worth the shot. But Arda, this has been a blast, man, and I truly appreciate the insights and getting to learn a little bit more about your journey, aside from just the Wikipedia and LinkedIn scroll that every good podcast researcher does ahead of time. Tell the people where they can find you and where they can see you this upcoming season.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Arda, Arda. That's most of where I post
Cool.
my stuff on Instagram at Arda Öcal. But once again, Nick, great stuff that you're working on, and the new. I know you got a newsletter as well. That's crucial stuff. Like people need to be in the know. That's like knowing is half the battle, right? Like you got to be in aware of what's happening. So the fact that there's somewhere that people can go to understand what jobs might be available, and even if it's not a job that's directly related to yours, at least to be able to know that there's places that are hiring and reach out and network.
Absolutely.
Like these are all important things. So good on you, man. Good on you.
Thank you. No, very much appreciated. Like I said, guys, this was a blast, and Arda's the man for coming on here. Be sure to subscribe to the Working in Hockey podcast, and we'll see you next week.